So, welcome everyone to Friday Study Circle, where we reflect upon words by masters and mystics and anything, mostly Sri Aurobindo's and Mother's words. But if anything comes, Saint Kabir or other mystics, we can take that up for reflection. So, anybody who wants to start, Jasmine, if you have something to share, or Badalji, whoever wants to start, we can take that up. Otherwise, I was also reading this little booklet. So Sri Aurobindo Society, it publishes, from time to time these little booklets, compilations. It's on death, and that's what I was sharing in the group also. I think very interesting things about death and how to approach it and how to go about, for example, if one is losing a loved one, what is the best possible way. So in other case, we can also take up some reflections from this.
Yeah, Monica, if you can share, I found it really interesting. I
Okay.
think you want send me a book, Death and Dying by, I don't know.
Yes, Death, Dying
Yeah,
and Beyond. I had shared a PDF, I
Beyond.
guess. Yeah.
Yeah. I know I haven't read it fully
Mm,
because I
mm.
started other books, but we can share. I mean, if you want to share something, I found it really interesting.
Okay, okay, perfect. So I'll try to find it. Maybe it's there on the Incarnate Word also, but it's a little compilation. So I'll just read it also and try to find if I can put it on for all of us. So let us see, where can we start from? Hmm. So something which interests us all is also how to approach when someone is gone, crossed over, how to approach it, because there is so much attachment that we have. Usually we are grieving so much that in that we don't know the higher possible way mostly. So here there is something by Mother in Sri Aurobindo. So they say one can help the departed souls by one's goodwill or by occult means if one has the knowledge. The one thing that one should not do is to hold them back by sorrow for them or longings or by anything else that would pull them nearer to earth or delay their journey to their place of rest. So I think this should be in our education system since the very beginning, because when we lose our loved ones, no one shares that this is the higher way to approach. This is how we can approach. And in being sorrowful and being clinging to that person, we are actually harming the journey of the soul. So that really, I think, is very powerful, because
Yes, Monica. Yeah.
yeah, yes, Nandini.
It's such a, I mean, it, I have seen it. I mean, of course, I have not experienced it yet, but I think when I've seen and how, when someone crosses over and passes over, I mean, and if you, I mean, see, sometimes a short life, yes, it is difficult. One can't understand that, right? I mean, uh, it can get a bit it's quite dark there, but if you fairly, I think 85, 80, I mean, in the shastras they say that 84 is a good, I mean, that's when you probably pass over, and if you've led a good and a well lived life, then yeah, I think I mean, that's what I have seen and I've experienced, and I thought that when somebody, I think we should be really really uh, how do you put it, educated, as you said, when this happens. Thank you.
So I'm just putting it on. Help. No, I can't find it. So anyway, it doesn't matter. We'll listen. Maybe we'll train our ears to listen well. So this is one thing which I feel is very important. We should all know this, because we all have loved ones, and we know that sooner or later we either we go first or they go first, but going is definite, right? And it is the best way that not to hold them back by sorrow for them, or longings, or by anything else that would pull them nearer to earth or delay their journey to their place of rest. Then somebody asks, how should the news of death be received, especially when it is someone close to us? So, again, in our ignorance, usually we react in a very agitated manner, like too much of pain, too much of overwhelm. How can this happen? And maybe begin to beat our chest. People do this, all the time. So, here, Mother says, say to the Supreme Lord, let thy will be done, and remain as peaceful as possible. If the departed one is a person one loves, one should concentrate one's love on him in peace and calm. So, holding that person in front of us in our heart, we can just send him love for the journey. For that is what can most help the one who has departed. Because we are not just the roles we play, we are much beyond the roles that we play. So when now the person is ready to drop their roles that he was playing in this material existence, and to have the journey forward, to have sorrow, to have lamentation and clinging to the person, it actually doesn't allow the person to go ahead. So we are actually being very selfish in our ignorance, and not helping so-called our loved one. On one hand, he is my loved one, but on other hand, I'm not able to really help him the journey forward. So again, just because we don't have the knowledge, we are not able to choose this possibility. And then again, a questioner asks, if at the time of death the vital being is attacked in the vital world by hostile forces or entities, does it not look for a shelter somewhere? So vital being is the emotional being, the being with feeling. So according to Mother and Aurobindo, our mental sheath, vital sheath, and the physical sheath, it disperses once we are leaving the body. But for rare few of us who have a very unified personality, centered around the psychic being, all these sheaths are centered with the psychic being, and they don't disperse for a long time. But for most of us, mental dissipates and vital dissipates, has its own life, and then the physical also segregates, and the psychic goes to the psychic plane. So this vital being is the being with the feeling, the emotions, the attachments. So Mother says that yes, it is for this reason that in countries and all religions, it is recommended that for a period of at least 7 days after someone's death, people should gather and think of him. Because when you think of him with affection, without any inner disorder, so I'm not crying about the person gone, but thinking with affection that may his journey be smooth and nice, without weeping, without any of those distraught passions, if you can be calm, your atmosphere becomes like a beacon for him. And when he is attacked by hostile forces, which can happen on the way, he may feel altogether lost, not know what to do, and find him in great distress. Then he sees through affinity the light of those who are thinking of him. So if one is calm, one is thinking of the person with lot of love, affection, that actually flickers like a light in a dark passageway for that person who is making the journey ahead. So it flickers like a light, it like Mother says, it's like a beacon of light, your love, your affection. And that person who may be distraught in the journey, he may actually come to you for shelter. And he rushes there, Mother says. It happens almost constantly that a vital formation, a part of the vital being of the dead person, this emotional part, the part with feelings, takes shelter in the aura or the atmosphere of the people or the person who loved him. So if there is a presence of true love and care, genuine love and care for the person departed, then your love, your affection, and good feelings can actually help the person make the journey forward. So he can even take refuge in you, your light. And that's what mother is sharing, that is the real utility of these so-called ceremonies, which otherwise have no sense. So the real utility is to think of the person, to wish him good, to have, to wish him a very happy journey ahead, not to ask him again and again to come, why did you go, why did you go, because that traps the being to the earthly atmosphere. Then they also talk about, I think there was one thing which yeah, maybe this thing I can share. How to protect the departed. A questioner must have asked something. We don't only have answer from Sri Aurobindo here. So he says, I can understand the shock of your wife's catastrophic death must have been to you, but you are now a seeker and sadhak of truth, and must set your mind to rise above the normal reactions of human being and to see things in larger, greater light. Regard your lost wife as a soul that was progressing through the vicissitudes of life of ignorance. And like all others here, in that progress, things happen that seem unfortunate to the human mind, and a sudden accidental or violent death cutting short prematurely this always brief spell of terrestrial experience we call life seems to it especially painful and unfortunate. So things happen, accidentally people are taken away. But Sri Aurobindo is saying that to limited human mind, it may appear very accidental and sudden and violent. But there is, in the larger picture of things, there is a plan. But one who gets behind the outward view knows that all that happens in the progress of the soul has its meaning, its necessity, its place in the series of experiences which are leading it towards the turning point where one can pass from ignorance to light. So, even that sudden accidental death is one little piece of a puzzle of the journey from darkness to light of the soul, ignorance to knowledge. He knows that whatever happens in the divine providence is for the best, even though it may seem to the mind otherwise. Look on your wife as a soul that has passed the barrier between two states of existence. Help her journey towards her place of rest by calm thoughts, call to the divine help to aid her upon it. So, this is how our prayers can help. That may divine guide the departed soul. Grief too long continued does not help, but delays the journey of departed soul. Do not brood on your loss, but think only of her spiritual welfare. I think this is how we can step back from our selfishness. In our ignorance, we really are very, very selfish and delay the progress of the departed soul. So, if we have this understanding now through the mother and Sri Aurobindo, I think it can be really very helpful. So, yes, Bagalji? Yeah.
Where can I find this? Can you just forward this? It was very nice because we are not aware of this because we never studied this what you are quoting reading. This we have not come across the books which I was reading.
So I'll try to find if there is a PDF version of this death book on death. Very thin, it's only like 10 rupees or something. Very small little compilation. I'll try to find a PDF version. If not, maybe one by one I can try to find it in incarnate word and one by one share with you.
Yeah, or we can buy it if it is available.
Yeah, it must be available at all the Sri Aurobindo ashram stores or
Okay.
But let's see. Maybe there is a PDF version. I'll try to find it.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Monica, for sharing this. I think my whole journey with my brothers that has been, I think, uh, connecting to that part, like what we can do to help the departed soul. And I think knowing that the prayer, your calm, your energy goes to the person, I think that's a big relief. So I think it also depends on your own state, right? Kyunki it's been an experience, because I have other family members, each at a different level of consciousness. So, his death took me to a very deeper level because I couldn't find him in the physical. I couldn't connect or touch or feel, it's literally like I did not get any physical in the sense, not even के ashes, not even के तुम एक वो death के बाद घर जाते हो जो सन्नाटा होता है वो भी नहीं मिला. So it's almost like, this has been a journey. I call it beautiful, which I think only you'll understand why. And I think it's been beautiful because it was nothing, but I had to go deep within me at that level to touch that. But I think to hear these words, it brought like a lot of relief. I've been questioning it, and a part of me probably senses it. I've been doing it, but again, I don't know. It's for my own what the truth reality is, but my experience at least is this is what brings me relief. So thank you. But it's interesting, when they say I think I've heard it other times too, ke ro mat, dukh pahunchega, soul ko and all that. But I think it mainly depends on your own conscious level to where we are. Like a lot of people, grief is so different for so many people क्योंकि कई फैमिली में सिर्फ उसके वर्ल्डली उससे रह जाएंगे. देखा क्या था, बच्चों का क्या होगा, उसका क्या होगा. But what brought me relief was this thing that we are on a journey. This is just like a pit stop, जैसे vacation पे जाते हैं. We go to so many places. We don't worry कि वहाँ पे क्या हुआ, क्या नहीं. When we come, we know that we have to come back to home. But I think it's yeah. No, it's thank you. It's nice to hear it from somebody like mother and share Banda kind of
Yeah.
helps you.
I remember there was somebody asking Jetsunma Tenzin Palmo about how we can help people who are not yet gone but dying, for example. And they're not people who are very spiritual. So you can't talk spirituality with them, right? They would not understand. How can somebody help? Because there was this person who was in hospital, maybe in palliative care or somewhere, and not everyone is understanding spirituality. So Tenzin Palmo had shared with her that just because people in India have devotion, maybe
Yeah.
one is devoted to Hanumanji or Sai
Yeah.
Baba, anything one is
Yeah.
devoted to. So she had shared that ask that person to just follow whoever they are devoted to
Mm.
in their heart, in their
Yeah.
heart. So either if I don't have any devotion, to follow the light,
Mm.
to always follow the light
Yeah.
when you are on this journey. And the other thing, if you have devotion, then to follow the object of your devotion. And it's so simple, such a simple instruction which most of us can follow. Because if, for example, I have faith in mother, it's very easy to bring mother in my heart and have the image of her, you know,
Mm.
when I'm lying down on my bed, right? It's very easy for me. And for others who are intellectual, maybe they don't have devotion much, to follow the light, just follow the light. So that was really helpful when I heard that, if you are sitting next to a person who may be wanting to now cross over
Yeah.
or whatever, how to help, just inwardly communicate. Even inward communication helps
Yeah.
because the consciousness is listening all the time, that
No,
follow the light, follow the light. Yeah.
yeah. No, I had I mean, I had like a couple of experience. My experience of this death was much deeper, I think, for me because I had experienced other deaths, different levels, different aspects. Every time a different aspect kind of opened up. So just recently, my husband's nani passed away. She was 100 plus. So uske saath, everybody makes peace with it. And she was a very beautiful soul. She used to do parts so much, but her end days were an experience in itself. She stopped doing part and she actually started saying कि बहुत नाम ले लिया लेके नहीं जा रहा मुझे, but it was actually cute way, like everybody, it was a very different experience. Even in experientially, I think energy shifts, And the only thing I used to do was just sit with her because she didn't even want us to come close to her. She would say, "Paas mat aao, mujhe muh todna hai." She was a different kind of soul, very, I think, very, I don't know, in her own way, very conscious. So it was a very, so her death was very peaceful. So her whole death experience was like meditation for me. Even for family itself. I think maybe I was at that spot क्योंकि एक तो तुम्हारी peace थी, उनकी peace थी, and I think that's how one should go peacefully, in a way. Ki the funeral itself was very peaceful, very calming. Like I think maybe it was older. Then I questioned, like, it's our mindset ke bhai wo 30 saal ka chala gaya ya 60 saal ka chala gaya, but the truth is we don't I don't know, investigate or explore death in a reality of life, because it is painful. It is painful. It is uneasy, or it is something not we're used to, you know. And what I really found interesting was, and the other challenge I had was, because after that death, consciously or subconsciously, I had this fear. मुझे लगता था सब मर जाएंगे. Not consciously, but subconsciously, I had this. So I used to feel that whenever I had to leave, even my son, or if कहीं जाना भी होता था, that fear was there. But I think there were really beautiful lines that Taru shared once in Harmony Circle. If you want to share. I think those were really beautiful. That kind of brings the death aspect to life. I'll copy paste it. I
Yeah,
think it.
please. Yeah,
Um, sorry, I'll share that. I'll mute for a second.
yeah, yeah. You want to read it out for all of us, Jasmine?
Here, and I will, sorry, logged onto two places.
Hmm.
I thought this was beautiful. Don't fear the pain. When you look into the eyes of a loved one, you know they'll die someday, and one day could be today. So it breaks your heart a little every time you look into the eye. This is not a mistake, but the way it should be. True love brings awareness of the loss of a loved one. And then you stay with your pain today. You breathe in it and you make a home in your heart, your chest, throat, and stomach hurts. But you feel so alive. This pain, this loneliness, this longing for home, and you feel so alive and awake in the pain, and you want the pain to stay with you because you want to keep your heart open to your loved one today. You don't want to close the mysterium tremendum of existence, and you don't want to hold on to what will surely happen. You love your loved one through pain, through tears, broken heart, and consciousness of mortality. You live closely to contingency, impermanence, and change, and every moment with your loved one becomes infinite precious. So to me, these lines, you basically you love your loved one. To me, it's also even living life with that wholeness, that consciousness of mortality, impermanence. You celebrate his, I think after that I didn't paste, but I'll read it out from here.
Hmm.
Mm. Yeah. You celebrate his presence today, but remain rooted in his passing. Accept this day alive, knowing it could be your last chance to find you, your last chance to find you. Well, may everything be final, then, and obsessively living in its purpose. Death is in life, not in the end. Pain is your constant companion, your guru, guide, and lover. It is not something negative or depressing, but a misunderstood doorway to cosmic compassion, to extraordinary hope, and a deep, lasting love for life. All things will pass, all things are dying, changing in one way or the other. All that we love, all that does not flow through our consciousness, conscious, unstoppable, incessantly like sand on an hourglass, like hot blood in the veins. We cannot stop the flow of holy pain, but we can learn to endure it and even love it. Let it open us to more life and more laughter and more willingness to be where we are, feel what we feel, know what we know, even though it hurts, and yearn escape. Although sometimes we want to die as of so much life, I'm eternally grateful for pain and its destruction and unplanned losses because I have been kicked and screaming into a clear consciousness of only thing that cannot be lost. We die to life, my love, we die to life. To me, this was really captures the journey, and having lived that is a blessing. I think it is.
Yeah, beautiful. I think one thing which really helps, knowing, understanding that death is uncertain, can happen anytime, as you were sharing, is that we stop to take things for granted. कि अपने लालच में we always want more and more and more. This is not enough. Whatever is happening is not enough. But when we know that things are uncertain and anything can happen anytime to each one of us, then whatever is happening, we take it with a lot of gratitude. And this incessant asking for more, more, more can also rest. Yeah.
Yeah, it brings the other aspect. It brings more life into life, like
Hmm.
the loss of it does. Because might not be all the time, but it shifts someone. I think
Hmm.
even a non-spiritual person gets shifted every time. कुछ तो हिलता है, कुछ तो हिलता है, कुछ तो उस तरफ towards I don't know which towards what, but towards whatever their further progress is. I
Yeah.
find
Yeah.
whether it's painful, less painful, or maybe it's avoidance too. But again, that avoidance can lead to sometimes further progress too. But I
Hmm.
see shifts, how you say pain is the hammer of God. So
Hmm.
yeah. So I think, but somehow I always question why we do the prayers that we do. And I know in certain Vedas or scriptures, it's written how the body leaves, and then there's Pitraloka or something like that. I think
Mm-hmm.
a part of me, I wanted to know that. I think to bring relief to
Hmm.
myself at some point.
Hmm. So
Hope.
we'll read something which will add on to our understanding. This thing only about death. Let me. I had read something here. Mm, yeah. So one thing which is very important to understand is to let go of our desires while we are alive. This thing comes up in Kabir also. It comes up because he says that Maya mari na man mara, mar mar gaye sharir, asha trishna na mari, keh gaye das Kabir. And here in this book also, Sri Aurobindo, I'll just read it out, he shares that your vital being, which is full of wants, demands, expectations, desires unfulfilled, that keeps on living. So it's like a torture almost, that the, like, imagine that your wants, by the whether it was lust or lust for money, power, anything, that is continue to live. And that not only continues to live, it haunts other people's lives, because that separate desire, it actually piggybacks on somebody else. So it's almost a social contribution to be rid of desires while we are alive, so that when we die, we don't prey on other people and their lives. So let me read this. I think it's very, interesting. So what happens after death? The soul, it's words of Sri Aurobindo, the soul takes birth each time, and each time a mind, a life, and body are formed out of the materials of universal nature according to the soul's past evolution and its need for future. So the mental being, the vital being, emotional being, and the physical being, each time it re-aggregates itself. When the body is dissolved, the vital goes into the vital plane and remains there for a time. But after a time, the vital sheath disappears. So the being of feelings, the being of emotions, impulses, desires, it stays for some time and then it completely disintegrates. The last to dissolve is the mental sheath. Finally, the soul or psychic being retires into the psychic world to rest there till a new birth is closed. So this is our soul consciousness or the psychic being. This is the general course for ordinary developed human beings. There are variations according to the nature of individual and his development. For example, he's talking about one of the variations possible. If the mental is strongly developed, then the mental being can remain. So the body is disintegrated, but the mental being is existing separately. So also can the vital, provided they are organized by and centered around the true psychic being. They share the immortality of the psychic. So since psychic in us does not die, is the immortal essence of us, if my mental being has been centered around the psychic while I am alive, then the mental being also shares that immortality of the psychic being. It's very interesting. And same with the vital being, the emotional being. If my being is always centered around goodwill, compassion, love towards all the people, oneness. So this centering around the psychic being, it allows it to share the immortality of the psychic being, even the being of feelings. It is really for the vital part of the being that Shraddh and other rites are done. So vital being is the sticky part. It's like the being of emotions and attachment. And it's for that part that the Shraddh is done. To help the being to get rid of vital vibrations which still attach it to the earth and vital worlds, so that it may pass quickly to its rest in the psychic peace. वही जो आप बता रहे थे about your nani, that she said कि अब मुझे मोह तोड़ना है. So what a beautiful realization that now that I have to journey ahead, let me actually let it go right now while I am alive, because there is an understanding that I'll stick to the earthly plane if not right now, let go of the ties. Then she shares, there is after death a period in which one passes through the vital world and lives there for a time. This is only the first part of this transit that can be dangerous or painful. In the rest, one works out under certain surroundings the remnant of vital desires and instincts one had in the body. So if living in the body, I had too much of desires of any sort, then I think this is very relevant for us who are alive to understand, because those vital desires and impulses, they will continue their seeking fulfillment while being in the vital world. Would you like that? One can ask oneself. कि imagine कि मुझे चाय की बड़ी attachment है. There was this story, I think Taru only had shared once, that there was this lady who was always complaining about coffee. And yes, Nahi, let me come to this. So this lady who always was complaining about the body coffee, that is not good, how bad, chini kam hai, ye kam hai. When she was gone, an occultist was there in that room, and he said that the part of lady is still there complaining about the coffee. So imagine who of each one of us would like to be there in our ghostly forms? So Snehi is asking, what does desire truly mean? Material goals and ambitions are also part of this. Yes, they are part of this. Yeah. So anything that we take to be too solid and real, and we are after that in our earthly life, is stickiness or desire. So for those of us who understand this, now that say you are here listening to this, you're still young. If we can follow something of our heart, not with a stickiness, I think that is where we can conquer not being sticky. Now that we understand that this can be really harmful, because while we are alive, to know the havoc of excessive desires, there is a different thing called aspiration, which is true and non-agitated. In an aspiration there is no agitation. In desire there is agitation कि अच्छा ये नहीं मिला तो पता नहीं क्या होगा. That kind of restlessness and agitation is there. So that has to be taken care of if possible. So here Sri Aurobindo was sharing that the vital world, the vital being stays for some time, which can be dangerous or painful. And he shares that as soon as one is tired of these, again fulfilling the same desires in that vital world, as soon as one is tired of these and able to go beyond, the vital sheath is dropped, and the soul, after a time needed to get rid of some mental survivals, passes into a state of rest in the psychic world. So this is something which can be done and worked upon while I am alive, so that I don't have to go through that painful repetition of my fulfillment of desires in that vital world. It's painful. Why to cause myself into this when we have this little understanding? So then he shares that if you are living right now, if you are living a life of desire, passion, and impulse, you live with your vital being dominant in you. But if you live with spiritual effort, with great goodwill, the desire to do things well, and an unselfishness, a will for progress, you live with the psychic being dominant in you. So these are our possibilities. Either I can live with a desire being in front of me, or with a goodwill and good heart in front of me. Then, when you are about to leave your body, all these beings start to disperse. So, the vital being disperses, the mental being disperses. Only if you are a very advanced yogi and have been able to unify your being around the divine center, do these beings remain bound together, the mental, vital, and the physical. If you have not known how to unify yourself, then at the time of death, all that is dispersed. Each one returns to its own domain. So the mental being goes to mental world, vital being goes to the vital domain. For example, with regard to the vital being, all your different desires will be separated. बता रहे हैं क्या क्या होता है उसका, कैसे छटनी होती है. For example, with regard to the vital being, all your different desires will be separated and each one run towards its own realization. So if there is a desire for coffee, it merges in the world for desire for coffee. Imagine. If there is a desire for lust, then it merges, that particular desire goes and runs towards its own realization quite independently. For the physical being will no longer be there to hold them together. So right now we have physical body which is holding the beings and sheaths together. But then when the physical is not anymore there, every part runs towards its own realization. But if you have united your consciousness with the psychic consciousness, now this is what Mother and Sri Aurobindo stress upon. Even when in Buddhism we talk of generating the bodhicitta, the psychic, think that that's also referring to the psychic being, the being of good heart in us. So if in while being alive, you have united your consciousness with the psychic consciousness, when you die, you remain conscious of your psychic being. But this has to be done while we are alive. And there is in Buddhism, there are, when people die, when enlightened masters die, their body remains in what they say, tukdam, for a long time. The body is full of light and doesn't rot for a long, long time because their psychic presence is still there. This also happened with the mother and Sri Aurobindo. Sri Aurobindo's body was full of golden light when he left his body. And this happens with those enlightened masters who right now, while they are alive, living as their psychic presence. So this is a possibility for each one of us also. So when you die, you remain conscious of your psychic being, and the psychic being returns to the psychic world, which is a world of bliss, delight, peace, tranquility, and growing knowledge. So if you call to that a paradise, it is all right. Because in fact, to the extent to which you are identified with your psychic being, you remain conscious of it, you are one with it, and it is immortal, goes to the immortal domain to enjoy a perfectly happy life or rest. So you truly rest when you drop body dead. It's not that you are suffering still because of your desires and impulses.
So Monica, in layman terms, you do get a break in between.
Good one. Yeah,
Yes.
true.
Yeah, you get
Yeah,
a break.
you
That's
really
good.
get a rest. Yeah, actually, even for people who are not unified in their consciousness, they say that after the different sheets are dispersed, after a period of turmoil, the being actually goes to rest.
Okay.
But now for enlightened masters, or for those of us who live consciously, try to live with the psychic presence, the rest happens sooner and turmoil is less. Yeah.
And I think, I don't know, you sent it, remember that there's in Buddhism, there's Book of Death or something like that. I
Uh-huh.
think there was documentary there too,
Yeah.
which kind of, I think it's the same thing what they've said in Pitraloka, basically depending on what this state you die in.
Mm-hmm.
And even in six scriptures, Guru Granth Sahib, they say like, कि तुम जैसे state में जाओगे, so that's where, which kind of resonates, कि whatever state or energies, desire you have, that will further decide where you
Propagate
go.
itself. Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
propagate it. So
Yeah, yeah. So I think this is very important to realize, because since the time of death is uncertain, and whatever state of consciousness I leave the body in, I will be having a birth in that state of consciousness. So I have to be very careful and constantly at work cleaning my state of consciousness, state of being. Having a mental inward check all the time, being mindful of my state of being, since death can happen anytime. So yeah. And that is,
just
sorry, please. Go ahead, please. I'll say
no,
later.
nothing. You go ahead.
I was just sharing that what we call that we are tied to samsara, unconscious births, again and again taking birth, again and again taking birth. Now, this is where it is connected with that, because if my work is not complete, if I'm still in this existence, in this human birth, I'm not able to make good use of human birth, which is to get rid of now desires and live from the psychic, then I'll be tied to come again and again and again and again, so long as this doesn't get let go of. So this is our chance. That's why they say human life is so precious, because not in every like an animal or wherever one is born, not in every state of consciousness you have this chance to work on yourself. Now I have the work possibility to become conscious of my state of being, and to have my higher and higher possibility, so that when I drop dead the body, I don't take an unconscious birth, I have the possibility to take a conscious birth. Yeah, please share if you have something.
No, I just like there's a part of me that wants to understand this, but then to bring it back to life, to how I can apply, not so consciously, I'm just saying it for sake. But this also makes you understand when kids are born, can you like same household, same kids, or certain उनकी innate ही चीजें जैसे पिछली होती हैं, which in our culture it's fairly common. We go with that understanding कि पता चल जाता है कि पता नहीं कौन से पिछले जन्म की वो इंटेंसिटी ऑफ रिएक्शंस और वो होता है. So it's also makes you understand कि जो हम अपनी डे टू डे लाइफ में लोगों के so many things we hold against people या उसके that कि उनकी depth उनके ही शायद just बस की नहीं है, sort of they have to work through. So that helps with the compassion, sometimes that's what I feel. In understanding and compassion, you don't have to condone their behavior, but at least we come with that understanding. So it's not just about my journey, even for their journey, to understand that. And that brings self-compassion too, because even sometimes the reaction or the feelings or whatever, even if it's internal, it comes out, it doesn't match the current scenario. जो चीज हो रही होती है, the intensity is just like नाजायज ही होता है, it's not fair sort of. So I feel like bringing back that this even understanding of that, we have to get back to how we live our life. And it is challenging. I mean, itna sab bol ke bhi, I know that I've had few experiences even recently कि in that moment वो इतना नहीं आया, ये understanding नहीं आया. That moment was just save the body, save the body. That I think the natural response of survival सा kick in हो जाता है.
Yeah, actually, on this, what you just shared, na, save the body. On this, I just read something. Just a second.
And I wanted to move it. Mere sath, I think I shared it in one of the sessions too. It's pretty, I find it pretty lame now, but still, like, चाहे किसी भी चीज से हो सकता है. To me, that was, I got the vaccine and I had started having chest pain, and then at night, and I'm like, कि बड़ी peace में I got it. I'm like, it's meant to be, जो भी है, surrender everything, all that. At least how, I don't know if mine was deceptive or what the reality is. I find it amusing actually. So at night time when I was having that chest pain, तो तब मुझे उस level की spirituality नहीं feel हुई. But it was more like, okay, what should I do? Sit up? Should I call somebody? चाहे वो few seconds के लिए था. After that I passed, and then after that I got aware of the feeling, which was another experience. कि भाई how quickly survival kicks in. What if this is my last breath? कुछ कर नहीं पाई, but that experience stayed with me. How it was good to see, जैसे कि how quickly you get caught up in all that. और इतनी मेरे को लगता है at least मेहनत की spiritual understanding कि अगर मेरी ये last breath है, अगर मैं उसी survival fear में ही मरूं, I didn't want that. So like अगर मुझे मरना है तो मैं free होके at least अभी तो split feeling में मरूं. So that was, it must have been a matter of 4 or 5 minutes. Must have been a matter of 4 or 5 minutes, but it was an experience, कि ये जो सारा करते हैं तो वो जो practical application में आया, how your survival kicks in. But you go
Beautiful.
ahead.
Yeah. Beautiful. I think that really, such kind of experiences make us very grounded. They let us know that बहुत काम बाकी है अपने ऊपर, and there is a difference between knowing and living. And yes, although I feel mostly fearless, but how ingrained and deep is this fear of death? So on this, I just read something from Sri Aurobindo, which I thought would be nice to share. So he's sharing, it's the mother. Generally speaking, perhaps the greatest, just a second. Generally speaking, perhaps the greatest obstacle in the way of man's progress is fear. A fear that is many sided, multiform, self contradictory, illogical, unreasoning, and often unreasonable. Of all fears, the most subtle and the most tenacious is the fear of death. It is deeply rooted in the subconscious and it is not easy to dislodge. It is obviously made up of several interwoven elements. The spirit of conservatism, this wanting to protect ourselves, and the concern for self preservation so as to ensure the continuity of consciousness, the recoil before the unknown, and the uneasiness caused by the unexpected and unforeseeable, and perhaps behind all that, hidden in the depths of cells, the instinct that death is not inevitable, and that if certain conditions are fulfilled, it can be conquered. So, Mother is not only sharing that the fear of death is there, she is also sharing that somewhere a part of us knows that we can conquer death. So, both are true at the same time. Although, as a matter of fact, fear in itself is one of the greatest obstacles to that conquest. For one cannot conquer what one fears, and one who fears death has already been conquered by it. So then after that, there's this passage, it's a long one. Then she shares how we can understand death and overpower its fear. And then she shares that one is the method for people with reason. They can reason it. And then she says, okay, next method is for people who are emotional. So would you want me to read this out? Yeah, we have 10 minutes. Maybe I can read this out. It would be nice. So, first method, Mother shares, appeals to the reason. One can say that in the present state of the world, death is inevitable. So, it's very reasonable. Death is inevitable. Everybody is dying all the time. A body that has taken birth will necessarily die one day or other. And in almost every case, death comes when it must, when one can neither hasten or delay its hour. So, we are reasoning with ourselves. Logically, seems correct. Someone who craves for it may have to wait for very long to obtain it, and someone who dreads it may suddenly be struck down, in spite of all precautions one may take. The hour of death seems therefore to be inexorably fixed. This reminds me of the story of these people, who were trying to save themselves when there was this maybe thunder or something, and they said that, okay, let us find the safest place, and they could see that the safest place is maybe the banyan tree, below which they started to stand, and only that tree got struck by the lightning and whatever thunderstorm, and the other people were safe. So understanding that whatever we may try to do, we may not be able to protect ourselves. Reason teaches us that it is absurd to fear something that one cannot avoid. So, Mother is telling us how to take care of this fear of death. That now, even if we are reasonable, how absurd to fear something which you cannot avoid. Yeah. Now, this reasonable people, how can they go then about day to day? The only thing to do is to accept the idea of death, quietly do the best one can from day to day, from hour to hour, without worrying about what is going to happen. So, this is one of the ways in which this can happen. Now, but it would be less successful for emotional people, this idea that Mother shared, who live in their feelings and let themselves be ruled by their feelings. No doubt these people should have recourse to the second method she shares, the method of inner seeking. This is for those of us who are emotional, more in feelings. Beyond all the emotions, in the silent and tranquil depths of our being, there is a light shining constantly, the light of the psychic consciousness. Go in search of this light. Concentrate on it. It is within you. With a persevering will, you are sure to find it. As soon as you enter into it, you awake to the sense of immortality. So, for those of us who go deep, deep, deep inside us, ourselves, and are able to touch something really concrete in us, Mother says, then we awake to a sense of immortality. Then something in us becomes sure that I know that even after body dies, I will not die. Consciousness would not die. You have always lived. You will always live. You become wholly independent of your body. Your conscious existence does not depend on it. And this body is one of the transient forms through which you have manifested. So, this knowing comes, Mother says, for those of us who go deeper. And all that fear instantly vanishes, and you walk through life with the calm certitude of a free man. Then she has a third method. Third method is for those who have faith in a God. So, people with devotion, bhakti, their God, and who have given themselves to him. So maybe I have given myself to Sri Krishna or Mother or whoever. They belong to him integrally. All the events of their lives are an expression of the divine will, and they accept them not merely with calm submission, but with gratitude, knowing that somebody knows higher than me. They are convinced that whatever happens to them is always for their own good. They have a mystic trust in their God, and they have a very intimate personal relationship with him. They have made an absolute surrender of their will to his and feel his unwavering love and protection, wholly independent of accidents of life and death. They have the constant experience of lying at the feet of their beloved in an absolute self surrender. And then there is no room for fear, anxiety, and torment for such people. There is no room for fear. All that has been replaced by a calm and delightful bliss. And then he says, but not everyone has the good fortune of being a mystic. So there is finally, Mother says, finally there are those who are born warriors. They cannot accept life as it is. They feel pulsating within them their right to immortality, an integral and earthly immortality. They possess a kind of intuitive knowledge that death is nothing but a bad habit. They seem to be born with the resolution to conquer it. But this conquest entails a desperate combat against an army of fierce and subtle assailants, a combat that has to be fought constantly, almost every minute. Only one who has an indomitable spirit should attempt it. So, this is for the warriors. And then she continues talking about this battle that these warriors have to wage. So, I think that's a little sneak peek window into death with Mother and Sri Aurobindo. And that's not the all of it, but yeah, I think many good pointers for all of us to work upon. Yeah. Any last comments, anyone? All right. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining and listening and sharing, reflecting together. Yeah, thank you. I'll share if I find a PDF, I'll share. If not, I'll try to manage something and share with all of us. Okay.
Who
Thank
is the
you.
author?
Author is Mother and Sri Aurobindo only. It's actually it's at the back of it. It's written Oro Publications, Sri Aurobindo Society, and they have these from time to time. These
I'll start in Amazon. I'll start in Amazon if it is there.
Amazon में मुझे लगता नहीं आपको मिलेगी, but
Amazon.
I'll let me try to find. It's written compiled by Vijay from the writings of Sri Aurobindo and Mother. I'll try to find it for you, Badalji. Don't bother. We'll see. Something
Thank you.
will be arranged. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Most welcome. Bye bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah. Bye.